Greetings, Patrick here, Eight Questions with, and welcome to the show. Um, yeah, wow. It's been sort of a goofy day, I guess. Guess I didn't do a whole lot of nothing. But we are here. We are here. Glad to be here. Glad to be here. Want to thank everybody who came out and hung out with us last night as we talked to actress and singer Natalie Denise Spurl. I had an absolutely awesome time with that. Very fun lady. Super cool. Uh, and very talented as well. Hello, Echo. Hey, Jaden, how are you? So today we are doing something a little different. We are interviewing a fellow podcaster, but probably no one that you've ever met before. So Yerger, um, he worked in law enforcement for 25 years, including 21 as an active Secret Service agent. And yes, he did work a president detail. I believe he worked. I believe he worked the Obama's detail. So he recently retired after his time, and so now he's going to get into the podcast and the radio and into the media. He has a lot to say, and he wants to say it. So he has a YouTube channel here that he's just getting off the ground. Uh, he's got a show he does every Wednesday called Up the Middle, which I highly recommend. Um, uh, he's a very good speaker. He has a lot to say, and he's also getting a radio show off the ground, as well as his. He wants to establish a footprint in the world of media, and so far he's doing pretty good at it. Um, oh, thank you so much. Hi, Sue. How are you? Hi, Anthony. How are you? All right. So, so this is going to be a little different for us. We're going to be talking to him about his career in at the Secret Service because I've never met a Secret Service agent. This will be a first for me. Of course, I've seen them. I've seen Secret Service agents. I've been at two events where there were Secret Service agents around, but I have never really talked to anyone of the Secret Service. So this will be a first for us. Um, and he will talk about his life. And he has like I said, he has a lot to say. I'm going to let him talk about his story first because I think it'll be very interesting to hear it from him. So he will be here in about 10 minutes or so, and I put his personal website on the chat, and I pinned it, and I also put his YouTube channel up there too. So if you guys could all go over there and hit him up, that would be awesome. He's at 31 subs, so I'm hoping that as I'm looking now, I see there's 4 people in the chat. So I'm hoping that there'll be 35 in a few minutes because I will be checking. That's right. So let me go ahead and was telling you what's going on with the old calendar. It looks like there might be a change for Thursday. It might be being moved to Saturday afternoon. We're trying to work it out right now. Um, Spooky Kisses is actually in the middle of filming her new season of shows, and she will be actually on the road. Yeah, I'm yeah, we're gonna try to make it work. Hey Heather, how are you? Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing well. I know you had a rough winter, that's for sure. But summertime is here, so it's gonna be a lovely summer for you folks. Um, yeah, this will be fun. This will be fun. So we are working with Spooky and her husband. We're trying to get it so they can come on Saturday because otherwise I don't see us actually doing a show with them until December. That would sort of suck, because we want to talk about the haunting season. But if it has to happen that way, it happens that way, right? Uh, well, hopefully, Warner and you will have a great summer, for sure. I saw that Fluff was already getting her garden in shape. I hung out and watched Fluff work her garden. So that was fun. And yeah, we've been getting all the crazy wildlife stories from Australia. The one video where they showed that big ass python going from the family's roof to a tree. Oh hell no, no, thank you. I think Australia be one of those it'd be one of those countries where you would have to own a couple of machetes um, for all the creatures that are creeping around. But it's a beautiful country. I would love to visit Australia. All right, so let me tell you what's coming up on the calendar because it's like I said, we are working our asses off here for it. Uh, okay, so hopefully we can try to do the 30th. We're going to try to do the 30th of September for Spooky Kisses. That's my last one I got. I don't have anything else after that. I'm just trying to fill in my last regular dates, and neither one of those four regular dates will. All right, all right, definitely, by all means, we will be here. Um, so I will tell you a couple of things that we got coming up in October. We do have some fun coming up. We do have Rob Merritt will be here with us, actor and director, screenwriter. Rob Merritt will be here. A very, very amazing actor, a great producer, hell of a screenwriter. He's got new movies coming out left and right that we'll be talking about. That will be next Tuesday. On Wednesday, the 4th, we have actress Heather Harlow will be with us at 8 p.m. On Thursday, October 5th, we have fellow YouTube creator Tracy Hutchins of the YouTube channel Tracy and Chloe's Unboxing Beauty and More. That's right. We got another YouTube creator on here. And rumor has it there might be a special guest, but I don't know more about. I don't know. We're still waiting to see who our special guest may be. Um, Saturday, we are having a matinee on October 7th. I'm so psyched. Um, I'm so pumped because we this young lady is coming on, and her name is Hyde Raven Knight. She is a published poet. We were gonna have her come on before, but I learned something from that booking. I learned something. I learned that sometimes people they do get stage fright. And that's what happened to Raven. She had a terrible case of stage fright when she was supposed to come onto the show. I never saw that coming. I never saw that coming. I never had any guests tell me that they were going to have stage fright, and I never thought about it because she's a published poet. She does readings. She does open mics. I thought I didn't even think about that. So I learned something from that. And there's if people are a little hesitant about that, yes, no stage fright here. Yeah, you were on the world's biggest stage, Ross. So I definitely can see why you are not afraid of anything when you're protecting the president of the United States. That is about as big as a stage as you can possibly get. I can't think of anything bigger actually than working a presidential detail. So there is that. Um, but Raven had a stage fright. So what I did was I said, you know what? She wants to come back on. She wants to try. She wants to share her words. So I thought, well, you know what? We'll just go ahead and move it to a matinee, Saturday afternoon. No pressure at all. Just go out there, and just have fun, right? Just have fun. If anybody shows up, they show up, right? So we are going to have Hyde Raven Night on Saturday, October 7th, and she is going to read us some spooky poems. So I cannot wait for that. I'm so glad she's going to. I'm so glad she's able to overcome it for one thing. Now that could stage fright can happen to anybody. Um, I think I love talking too much. I talk too much, so I don't think I have stage fright. So I mean, I've been like intimidated by a few people, like holy shit, I can't believe I actually got I'm talking to this person. I've had that. I've had fanboy moments, but I never had I never had a show or talked to anybody where I was like I was afraid to. And yes, even yours truly did some open mic poetry readings. And I can tell you, I can understand why some people get stage fright. I can tell you. But look at all the people on YouTube. Look at all the people at YouTube. I mean, look, I look at my friend Mary Catherine Loves Cats. Mary Catherine was when she first started out, when her lives, oh my gosh. Oh yeah, she was terrified. Absolutely terrified. Now, honestly, she rocks. She absolutely out. She owns the mic. She's totally comfortable in front of it. The only thing I said to her the last time her show or she did a live, she needs a co-host. She needs a co-host to help run the chat because there's 40 people in their chat. That's too much for anybody. You got to have a co-host for that to keep that going on, to keep everything running in order. So, but yeah, a lot of us YouTubers, I mean, I didn't think I was going to be in front of the camera. I started, I didn't think about it at all until Hobbs got me to do it. Damn Hobbs. All right. Okay. Ross will be here. He's already in the chat, so he'll be here shortly. And we will get this party started. This is going to be a lot of fun. A lot of fun and educational too. This is really what I'm looking forward to this. And I will tell you too, I was going to save this till we got to the month, but I'm going to drop it now. So we are going to be interviewing a United States presidential candidate on October 17th. We'll be talking to Larry D. Avazato. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And he will be here on October 17th, and he will be our first presidential candidate ever on the show. Um, yeah. No, no, he's serious. He's serious. He is registered to run for the president of the United States. Anybody can do it. I think you have. I think there's an age limit. I think you have to be over 35. Have to be 35 in order to run for president. I, isn't it funny? We had to have an age limit to run for president, but no age limit to vote some a 90-year-old guy or girl out of office who obviously is not ready or competent anymore. Yeah, or Supreme Court, not in there for life, and everybody knows the Supreme Courts are just a lot of times it's just figureheads. Um, a lot of time, a lot of times their clerks behind them are the ones actually doing all the writing of the law, all their opinions. You know damn well for Clarence Thomas. I would love to see Clarence Thomas actually read a Dr. Seuss book in public. I just want to see if he can do it because I don't know if he could. I would like to see him actually read The Cat in the Hat. That would be a challenge. So we're gonna have Larry on the 17th. A couple other interviews we got coming up on the show. We're gonna be talking to our good friend Al Lucard, and I know, right? I've never interviewed the Bat uh, because I've gotten so used to him, the cat and the bat. But I've never interviewed Al, so we're gonna be talking to Al. I think we're doing an afternoon show for that. Actually, I think we're doing it at 3 p.m. A matinee show. He asked for that, so I think we're doing that at 3 p.m. Um, which means I got to find someone for that night. Great, that's always fun. It's getting a little hard. It's getting a little bit harder out there to find some really fun and sharp guests without having to pay for them anyway. Um, but we'll get back at it. And I will be taking November off. I will be taking November off. It's time for me to yeah, it's time for me to take a break. I did this a year ago, August, but this time I'm literally taking the whole month off except for 2 days. I might even I might even have to. It might just be one day. I'm thinking more and more, just one day. All right, the doorbell just rang, so you know what that means. That means our guest is here. So I know this is not an actor or a producer or a director, but it's somebody more interesting in a lot of ways. If you're new to the channel, come around, stick around, share us out. And those who are here, help me welcome in our guest. It's Ross Yerger. Here we go.
There we go.
Good evening. Good evening,
How's
man.
everything?
I'm pumped up for this, huh?
Nice. Likewise. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you perfect.
Okay, awesome. Good, good. Yeah.
All right. Our friend from Horror Maniacs from Germany, Francesco is here. He's a film director, and glad he's here. He's made fan films of the Friday the 13th films. I guess that's a pretty good question to start off with. Is are you a horror movie fan?
My son is. My son Zach is a huge horror movie guy. I'm okay. I mean, when I say okay, I mean yes. I like movies with a plot, and so some of the some of the slasher films, not so much. But I'll tell you, a movie that scared the shit out of me was uh, Blair Witch Project.
Hell
The
yeah,
first one.
yeah.
When I saw that, I saw it under the premise of the plot. Um, my roommate and best friend at the time, also in law enforcement, he's a Pennsylvania state trooper. He told me that these college kids did this documentary and that it was about this thing called the Blair Witch, and they went missing and nobody knows where they're at. And as a result, I wanted to get that flag thing. 1 second. There we go. As a result, the family was trying to raise funds to hold a memorial service, and they found the footage that is what they shot during their expedition. You know, the whole plot to the Blair Witch. And I'm thinking this is all real.
Mm,
So
he sold it.
I
He sold you on it that it was real,
oh yeah,
right?
I had no idea, what was going on, and he told me, this is how this happened. And so we watch it, and I'm scared shitless. I was a local police officer at the time. He was going to the he wasn't there yet. He was going to the state police, and of course that night I slept with my gun aside of the bed because we all know how well a Glock works against a witch. But
Of course.
it made me sleep better. So then the next day or a couple days after, I saw the whole cast on Oprah, and
Oh,
I was pissed.
now see what I really like about that because you're honest. There are so many Walmart horror fans. When you mention the Blair Witch Project, they all say how much they hate it. They all, if you talk to most fans, they'll tell you how much they hate it. Or they'll say the Blair Witch 2 was better, or. And
Oh,
I just laugh at them. I'm going like, you know
I
what? The
thought the
reason why,
Blair Witch 2 sucked. Uh,
yeah, because it was a movie and you
yeah,
knew it.
exactly. Yeah,
But I
100%.
think what happened. I think the reason why that a lot of horror fans got so pissed there is because they got scared too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They got caught up in the hype, and they all went to it. They all went to it. They all watched it. We all did, and it was an amazing movie. It still is. It
Yeah.
still is an amazing movie, and I think they all got taken. And all of a sudden now, it's like someone you scare somebody and they turn around and act like you didn't scare them. Like, oh yeah, I knew you're behind there all the time. That's how
Well,
horror fans are with Blair Witch Project.
I actually have two connections to Blair Witch. One of the classmates of mine in the Secret Service Academy is from that area of Maryland. Wherever in Maryland that is, he is from that area. He knows that area very well. The other one was a friend of a friend was one of the producers of that movie. That is her claim to fame. I don't remember, like, but Kelly, I forget what her last name is, but she was, one of the like associate producers of that movie, and not a lot of what they did was partially her idea. The whole give the camera to the um, actors, and use. I mean, have you seen any of those actors in anything else ever since?
Just a few.
A little bit, but it's not like they were already mainstream actors. They weren't.
No,
And because if like Sean Penn would have done that, like, it's Sean Penn. Come on.
right.
But three or four, however many there were, no name people, it's so much more believable
Yeah.
and it's so well thought out and so well done. Um, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I went and saw it toward the end of its run, and so I went in there, and the theater I saw it, there was like me and two other couples, and sure enough, I was sort of like watching them 'cause I was behind them, and both, you know what? They both were scared. They both got scared, even though it had already been toward, everybody had already talked about it and everything else, and just like I said, it was toward the end of its run, but you still could tell they were scared,
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah. That's
they jumped.
well. That was the thing with me. We saw it at home.
Oh, that's
We saw
yeah,
it on I guess VHS or DVD, maybe, I don't know. We saw it at home, and I
yeah.
still haven't heard anything about it. So,
Um,
I bought into it because, again, same thing. You know, at that time I was focused on law enforcement and the gym and shit like that, and just never really even thought about the possibility of seeing this in the media somewhere. I didn't, and
no.
yeah, it's what makes it enjoyable. I
It
loved it.
does. I love word of mouth. I mean, a word of mouth, on a movie, that's how I heard about, people were talking about it, so I said, "Okay." The word when you get a movie like that, that no one really talks about, but other people do, um, it helps build up the suspense, it helps build up the anticipation. It's exciting, and of course, then you have people who don't want to miss anything, so they're going to be on top of it right off the bat. Like I
Right.
said, I liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I I too, the one of the scariest movies I saw at home, and even worse is I saw it on commercial TV, and that was the first Phantasm. That movie scared the shit out of me.
Don't know anything about that one. I think other scary movies that I saw. I like suspense movies, like crime thriller type stuff.
Yes, yes.
I thought the newer adaptation of The Invisible Man was genius. I thought that was so well done.
Oh,
It
with,
was still the same
Elizabeth,
premise.
Elizabeth Moss.
I don't know but were the guys wearing the suit that yeah, yeah.
I had a feeling you were gonna mention it, so I was ready.
With well done. With yeah, and I actually know some of those places. Some of that was filmed in the San Francisco area, and my second office in the Secret Service was San Francisco, so I recognize some of that scenery. It
Um,
just was a very good adaptation from the original, where it was a chemist and he drank something and it made him disappear, and so on and so forth. Today's technology, we're probably not far from that if we don't have it already.
right, right, yeah, it's funny we're talking about The Invisible Man, and then yesterday, David McCallum passed away, and he did a series back in the '70s called The Invisible Man.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, it only lasted a year, but it was a fun series, and, of course, it's one of the Universal monsters, um,
Right.
every October, it's all about the, Universal monsters, so, um,
Claude Rains.
Claude Rains, Bela Lugosi, Lon Chaney Senior, I think he's
Well, both
senior,
of them. But
uh,
Claude played the Invisible Man, and Louis from Casablanca.
oh, that's a great movie too.
Yeah,
Are you more of a classic movies fan, or do you like more classic movies, or are you more into the modern movies?
I'm into good movies.
Uh,
So there's some classic
Classic.
movies I could give a shit about. Um, but there's also some, more modern movies. Like, I'm not into the just like fast cars and blow it up and have no real meaning to the movie. Um, I think one of my favorite modern movies, one of my favorite actors, well, two of my favorite actors are Jeff Daniels and Gary Oldman. Uh,
Yes.
Gary Oldman played so many iconic and real people roles, and I think that's to play a real person and do so accurately is a gift. But then to also play some of the roles that Gary Oldman played of fictitious people and do them to the degree that he's done them is also exceptional. As you know, as far as real people, Gary Oldman played Lee Harvey Oswald,
Hmm.
Winston Churchill.
Yep.
I'm brain farting. Oh, Beethoven. And then his favorite, or my favorite of anything that he's done is Special Agent Norman Stansfield
From The Professional.
from The Professional. Yep, I was going to see if you knew that one.
Yeah.
That was my college roommates and I saw that when it first came out, and we got all liquored up at the apartment and walked right down the street, not half a block away, to the theater that it was playing in, and saw that movie drunk off our asses for the first time. And that first scene where that guy's running through the penthouse with an Uzi in each hand, and the fat guy that thought he was a big tough drug dealer till Jean Reno got a hold of him. We were crying, laughing so hard when that. But just the way Gary Oldman brought out that character, and I already knew I wanted to be in federal law enforcement. So I thought, wow, are there people like this
Mm.
on the job? And just the way he brought that out and the whole dynamic of the movie where a bad guy, a mob hitman, was actually the good guy, and
Right.
a good guy, a DEA agent, and his team were actually the bad guys. There's just such a unique and dynamic setup that Gary, that was that's my favorite role of his. Jeff Daniels also was in two of my favorite movies, in both cases playing real people. The first one, also back in college, was the movie Gettysburg.
Yes. Love that
He
movie so
played
much.
Lieutenant Colonel Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain.
From the
One
20th
of the
Ring.
few people, yeah, one of the few people to get the Congressional Medal of Honor and survive from what they did to deserve it. And then another one he played was the CEO of Pepsi and the eventual CEO of Apple in the movie Steve Jobs with Michael Fassbender. Um, Brain farting on the guy's name now, but that CEO, obviously a real person, he played that one as well, and just I think did it. The actual story, as you probably know about Steve Jobs, is fictitious with authentic, real life dynamics behind that plot. And I just for him to, I'm about to think of the name of the CEO guy. Um, just how well all those people were portrayed was very well done, and I think Jeff Daniels had a huge role in it.
Um, yeah, I'm a huge fan of Gettysburg. I thought Richard Jordan stole that movie from me. Lowell Armstead.
Yeah, yeah.
And I every time I watch that scene, man, I lose it. It's
When
I
he
got
gets shot,
huh?
or when he's crying by the campfire.
When he gets shot, when he's laying there, he's such a tragic and noble character, you know.
Yeah,
It's funny too because I hear the rhetoric, between the North and the South, and people wanting to pull down the statues of the Confederates. And it never fails to just amaze me when I hear people say, "You lost, you lost." To the people in the South, you guys lost the war. You lost the war. And to this day, I've always said, I don't know anybody who ever wins a civil war. There's no
Yeah,
such thing.
it's hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's. Do you understand? You lost, we won. What did you win? And what did it cost for you to do that? What exactly did you get out of it? I mean,
Right,
there was no construction. The new construction, there was no construction. Nothing really changed down in the South. Not really. Took years
right.
for that. It didn't take till I was born, the year I was born, for civil rights to be recognized. So what did you win and what did you do with it? It's like so I got to walk Gettysburg. Me and my wife went up there.
Oh, very nice.
We got to stay up there and walk the fields, and man, if your heart's open to it, if you can hear and smell everything, you can. We went where picket kicked off. The for the picket's charge. We were standing where he kicked off at, and man, if you don't think I don't believe in the supernatural. I don't believe in ghosts. You just haven't been there.
I was just about
Because,
to tell you that story.
yeah.
So one of there's a famous story about a foreign dignitary that was visiting the United States and was under Secret Service protection. And one of the stops he made was to Gettysburg National Park.
Oh,
One of the guys on his detail was in the Philadelphia office when I first came on as an agent. And he told us this story one year at Halloween that they're taking him. Apparently, one of the staffers or somebody knew American history to a point where they knew the battlefield well. And they took the motorcade on a vehicle tour of the battlefield and explained, the 3 days of Gettysburg. And while they're on the tour, they see some reenactors reenacting, the battle. And so they stop and watch, and they just turn around and drive away. When they got bored and said, okay, let's go on to the next part. They get back to the ranger station and they bring the dignitary in to meet with the rangers. And the dignitary says, tell the reenactors we really enjoyed their performance. And the faces on the rangers just go white. And I don't know the title, but the lead ranger said there were no reenactors on the field today.
yeah, I believe it.
Because of what happens, that is something that's very closely monitored. First of all, it's federal property. So to do something like that, you have to have a permit. Your weapons have to be inspected so that there's no live ammo, et cetera, et cetera. And so they know through patrols and what have you, there's no reenactors. If they say there's no reenactors, there's no reenactors.
Right.
And that ranger said, where did you see this? And I don't know exactly what it was, but they said where on the battlefield, and they just said, you may or may not believe, but what you saw were ghosts. We get that all the time.
Yeah. I believe it. I
I've seen
absolutely do.
footage. I've seen footage. One of the ghost shows like that. So many of those shows, I think, are ridiculously done and poorly done.
Yeah.
But this is one where it's a talk show where they have assorted, experts from the field, ghost researchers, hunters, and what have you. And you, the guy at home, sends in your footage of what you've captured. And they had this line of cannons, which I think is kind of probably the area that they were talking about. And they have on full body apparitions loading this cannon.
Wow.
and then disappears.
I
And
believe it. I believe if any ground in this, it's hollow ground for sure. It's hollow ground for
quite,
everybody.
yes,
It sort of bumps me out when I look the map and I see like there's roads that are intercrossing. It's like every year it seems like more and more of the battlefield gets encroached on. Like maybe we can get a little bit of nibble here and an acre here, and it's like no. How about no? I mean, it
yeah,
really. I mean, it's just why should we have I mean, I can understand roads to the battlefields, but you have main roads in the town. I mean, it's, they have one restaurant that was actually called Pickett's Charge. They had a restaurant, and I just wanted to go in there and go like, why would you name your restaurant after that?
yeah,
It's that it's like really. I mean, it just killed me. Um,
yeah.
would you watch
That was
movies?
my major, was history and political science. So, yeah, I'm more into the historical things.
Mm,
I almost bought a very old hotel here in Florida, and we would have done renovations to it that would have been fitting to its history. And it didn't work out, but the community that we were in was very excited, and we were all disappointed when it fell through. But there were some serious reasons why I had to walk away. It was a potentially very bad scenario. But yeah, I'm about history. I'm about preservation. I'm about learning from it. If you don't learn from or pay attention to history, you're doomed to repeat it. And
yeah,
here we are talking about a civil war, and look at what's happened with presidential candidates of various types. One lost, and some people believe that the deep state kept him from winning, and whatever
makes me
you want to talk about. But yeah,
the guy
we're
who
in
was in
modern
power,
day civil war right now.
the guy who was in power, the guy who held all the chips, and he lost. And he lost because people spoke up, and he just can't deal with it. Um, hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't mind mentioning his name because he's an asshole. So I'm anybody that knows me on here knows I am not I am very anti-fascist, very anti GOP, and I don't make no druthers about it. And if people have a problem with that, well, they can just take 2 steps off a cliff. Because I am a I am a student of history as well. And if you're not seeing what's going on in this country, I mean, all these fuckers running around going freedom, freedom, and they have no idea what it means.
yeah,
Um,
that
you know,
100%. Very
I mean,
much agree with
you got the politicians that are that, like like we're drowning in blood from our own guns. We're drowning in blood. Um, and they won't do anything. And yet at the same time, you go around. Someone said that. Someone says, "Well, if we have nothing to worry about by the guns, then why do you have security? Why do we have the Secret Service? Um, to protect you have to protect our leaders from some mad crazy people. Um, I want to know where you got how did you get into the Secret Service? Because you were a police officer before that, were you not? Did you?
for about a year. Yeah. So when I was in eighth grade, between eighth and ninth grade, I attended a summer camp. Oh, I'll be right back. Hold on. Hold on. There it is. That one of my cards in my computer, but actually both of them keep crapping out occasionally like that. It'll only be a second, and I'll be right back.
Uh,
Um, and what I'll do is if you put this up later, if you can edit that out if you want, and I'll see that it's happening. I'll pause and come back and start
w- w-
again.
you know what? I'm gonna tell people it was a ghost.
There we go. There we go. My place is on it. So between eighth and ninth grade, I went to a summer camp called Camp Cadet, run by, again, we mentioned before, the Pennsylvania State Police, and loved it. It was basically a week long police academy for kids. And one of the presenters were two Secret Service agents. They showed counterfeit currency, counterfeit credit cards, and then put a state trooper at a podium like he was the president. And then they put another state trooper in the audience with us, And when that state trooper drew a water pistol, the two agents reacted like they would if it was a real speech. And I said, that's what I want to do. And now when I see another popular movie, In the Line of Fire, and Dylan McDermott and Clint Eastwood are sitting at that piano, and Dylan says, I joined the Secret Service because I wanted to protect people. And Clint Eastwood's line is something like, the idea of throwing yourself in front of a gun, hoping like hell the bullet hits you instead of the person you're protecting, you find that appealing? And I always just kind of snicker and say, yeah, it takes a different person to do what we do. And not everybody, it's not for everybody, and that's okay.
Yeah.
We can't take everybody anyway. But I knew in that moment, in that summer, that's what I wanted to do. So after college and professional baseball, I started looking to find a real job. And that's when I went to a friend's dad who was a chief of police at a local police department. And we set up an internship program for me post college so that I could improve my resume for the Secret Service. I didn't get hired right away.
Okay.
And when I put that memo on the board in the squad room to everybody, he saw it, the chief saw it, and said, well, if they don't want you, we'll take you. And he goes in his office, locks his door, and researched and used Bill Clinton's crime bill that helped to fund smaller police departments like ours to put me through the police academy and then pay me with federal funds while I was on duty in North Coventry Township, Pennsylvania. So kind of, sort of, I've been a federal agent my whole life, because even my pay as a part-time police officer came from the U.S. government.
Not from the city itself.
Correct.
Wow.
And then
How was your first year on the job? Did you like it?
I was only there for about a year. Part of that was in the police academy. And then the Secret Service called back and said, you know what, we are reevaluating your portfolio, your file. Would you be interested in reconsidering the job offer if we decide to present you with the one? I said, yes, that's what I'm here for. And, that's what I want to do. And within the next 6 months, I was in the Philadelphia field office.
What was it like? What was it like to train with the Secret Service? Did they do anything that you can share? Did they do anything different that regular law enforcement does? I mean, and how do they test you to literally jump in front of a bullet? Do you have to go to a test to see what happens with that, or that's
it's called a practical exam. The training is 6 months. It's 2 separate schools. The first one is down in Georgia at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. That's like going to college to be a special agent. What I mean by that is it's the general basics of criminal investigating, how to conduct a criminal investigation, federal law, constitutional law, how to shoot your basic gun, how to tactically drive a basic car, and do all the basic criminal investigator things you would do as a special agent anywhere. In fact, some of the classes are mixed agency, meaning that there's Secret Service in it, there's IRS in it, there's ATF, there's other federal agencies in one class. Then you go to Beltsville, Maryland, to the actual Secret Service facility, and that's like going to grad school. Because there, not only do you shoot weapons, you shoot the actual gun you are going to carry for your career.
wow.
You shoot the other, automatic weapons that you're going to use throughout your career. You not only drive cars, you drive armored cars, which are much heavier. That's something that I can't share is how much, but they're way heavier and drive very differently than your basic Chevy Suburban or your basic Cadillac. And then you also do Secret Service specific investigations like counterfeiting, bank fraud, threat analysis. When somebody just threatening the president is illegal today. It didn't
Yeah.
used to be the case. In fact, shooting the president wasn't even the case back when Kennedy was shot, and he was the third president to be assassinated. Actually, the fourth president to be assassinated.
Well, by him being someone shooting a president would be just treated like if they shot just a regular person.
Correct. It's based on the local law at that time. Now it's a federal offense, but at that time there was no law to assassinate, prohibiting the assassination of any federal government employee or official.
Wow, I didn't know. I did not know that. I thought that was yeah. Wow. Um, Let me
It
ask you
would
this.
take
Now
us. It would
we're
take
talking
us.
about Kennedy. Uh,
Yeah, let me wrap that up for a second. It would take us. I mentioned three. There were actually four presidents in history to be assassinated. There would be three to be assassinated before the presidents got protection. The irony of all that, Lincoln being the first one, when the last thing he did before leaving the White House to go to Ford's Theater, where he would be assassinated, was sign the bill that created the Secret Service, the agency that would eventually protect presidents, somebody that he could have used that night. But at that time, the Army protected the president when they protected the president.
mhm.
And in fact, that evening, the officer, I think a sergeant that was assigned to him, went next door to the bar and went on a break and had a drink.
Must have been Irish.
If I would get caught anywhere close to alcohol today, I don't know. I couldn't explain to you what would happen.
Yeah. Oh God, no, I can't imagine
I
anybody.
just went next door and had a drink. Thought nothing of it.
No, I mean even off duty. I just yeah. Though the pressure of that job, though, I could see why that could happen, but I guess that's part of the moral the moral test. They when they interview you, that's one of the things they check for. It's like what do you do when you go home? Do you like to have a cocktail? Like do you watch football game? Do you have beers? And I'm sure if you're sitting there going like yeah yeah, I'm sure that's a red flag, right? They don't
No,
want you to drink at all.
it's from what I understand, the FBI is much more uptight about things like that. I mean, of course, I'm retired; it doesn't matter. But I'm having a rum cocktail right now. Um, it so closer to the end of the interview, it might get interesting. Um, no, not so much strong. I mean, they they want you to behave well, throughout the course of your adult life. And unfortunately, some of our employees didn't always do that.
Really?
But yeah, I mean, it's when you have that large of an agency, and the FBI is even bigger, way bigger, you're going to get people through that just don't hold the standard that we're all trying to hold. Um, and that's life. What defines the agency better is how they deal with that situation and its aftermath. We're all going to do whatever we can to prevent something like that. But look at what's happened with the Secret Service and the media. Cartagena, the guy that hit the supervisor that was drunk and hit one of the Ballards at the White House. Uh, as the saying goes, shit happens.
Yeah,
But
I
what
can't.
we
Honest to
do,
God, boss, I'm trying to. We're talking about the service. Honest to God, I'm trying to think of if I can think of five things I can think of the Secret Service has done. I can't. I can't think of a single. I can't think of a single time where I've heard or saw a Secret Service agent get in trouble. I've seen the
well,
FBI, and of course, like I'm one of the many. I feel like most of our law enforcement are, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
we've done it.
My dad, he was a cop. He was a cop, and I have a feeling he'd be spinning over in his grave watching the law enforcement today.
We've
But
had some people make mistakes, and like I said, the bigger thing about every agency who has to handle a situation like that, what better defines them is how that agency handles the situation and gives the personnel involved due process, and let them tell their side of the story. Cartagena, the stripper gate, that where a bunch of guys brought back prostitutes to their hotel.
Remember that?
That was one.
Um,
Pretty much everybody on that trip was presumed to have been with a prostitute. And I know some people that were grilled very hard and interviewed, and not just interviewed, but interrogated and what we call boxed, meaning put on the polygraph. And when they passed and when their stories checked out, they were pretty much untouchable. They could almost do no wrong, and rightfully so, because of how they were treated by an agency that they were very dedicated to and loyal to. That it's what has to happen when you're defending a reputation for an agency that does what we do. And
how many?
and
I think
there were
how
people that
many?
were involved, and they lost their job.
Oh, they did lose a job. Now, do they get reassigned? Like, like you're sick if you're in the service, and do they get reassigned, or they literally get the hook?
No, there were if you didn't have something that federal employees call career status, with like a teacher, professor getting tenured, you were let go immediately. And I know some people who were. Others were disciplined, officially, and it's on their career record, their personnel record. And then some maybe were reassigned, some were possibly demoted.
Hmm.
Everybody, carried that with them for the rest of their career. But
Yeah.
then those who were accused of it and could prove themselves having not been involved with it, that put a rocket strap to their ass. They got promoted rather quickly, because that's who you're looking for. That's the type of person that we were looking for in the first place.
Yeah, someone who's serving with honor and integrity. I can understand that. I can see why they get promoted. I know that the ones that managed to keep their jobs, that would be the end. That where they were at is where they were at. They would advance no further in their career. Um, now you served on which president did you what presidential detail did you work? I know you worked one president. Which one did
So
you?
I actually protected, at one point or another, every president as far back as Gerald Ford, with the exception of Ronald Reagan. Now, I say that, do the math. When Gerald Ford was president, I was 5 years old.
But after you retired,
But we are the only nation in the world that also protects their former heads of state and heads of government, of which
yeah,
the president serves in both roles. So when I protected President Ford, he was former President Ford. My actual protection time, however, because you start in a field office. Remember, I said earlier I started in the Philadelphia office and also did some time in San Francisco. My time, where my assignment is just protection, was with former President Clinton and former First Lady Hillary Clinton. I was with her primarily, actually, from 2007 to 2010, which encompasses the first time that she ran for president, as well as the time that she served as Barack Obama's Secretary of State. I was the agent on stage right when she announced during the campaign and she announced her health care plan. I was the agent on stage left when she suspended her campaign, made that announcement. I was the agent on her office door while she was being sworn in as Obama's Secretary of State. There was another historic moment at the actual DNC at Mile High Stadium. I was the agent that led her to the microphone during the roll call vote, where she made the motion to stop the roll call and everybody get behind Barack Obama. And she already had some delegates that, had said for her. So it could have been close. Mathematically, he was going to win. And that was the Democratic Party's move and her move to unify the party and put Obama on the platform. And when she said that, the place went nuts.
right. I remember that. Wow. Wow, that's amazing. That's an amazing. And I do know, like I mentioned before you got here, I do know like I said, I've been around Secret Service twice. Once I happened to go up in an elevator with two agents and a dog. They went up when Clinton was running for president, and then the other time was I was invited to meet the Secretary of Homeland Human Health Services, and she came and gave us a small talk to like literally 15 of us. There was more Secret Service with her than there was people that we were talking to. So I got to sit next to her, and we all have a conversation. And there was she had a detail of six in with her, and then two that we could see, two outside.
Yeah. So if that was the Secretary of Health and Human Services, you would have seen her Office of Inspector General. We don't protect the Secretary of Health and Human Services. The only cabinet members that we protect are the Secretary of the Treasury and the Secretary of Homeland Security. And
Mhm.
then the Chief of Staff, the National Security Advisor, other specific advisors, and so on that get not those are all positions that get protection by executive order, meaning at the beginning of the administration, the president signs an order saying these people are going to get protected by the Secret Service. And that's how we get them. Those
Well,
other cabinet members either get somebody from within their own cabinet, like the Office of Inspector General, or we call an OIG. Like, for example, the Attorney General gets the FBI, and other agencies get agents from within their agency. Patrick, you still there?
yep,
Did you just crap out too?
yeah, I did too.
Um, so, yeah, we get Treasury and Homeland Security, and then all the other cabinet level positions get somebody from within their agency. What would change that is if the president, writes that order making that change for, whatever reason, such as perhaps an elevated threat. I think that's happened before, and or that person is running in the next election for president, and they get it because they become a candidate, and that's a totally separate.
Now that's something that's interesting too. But let me ask you this. Well, I'm going to ask the second question first. So when someone declares their candidacy, how is it defined? Because there are people that literally sign up to run for president. They declare their presidency. How do you designate someone who's a serious candidate, one who's just signed up to see what the process is like?
There's the Federal Election Commission, which I think is the one that makes that decision. The Secret Service doesn't. The Department of then the well originally we were in the Department of the Treasury. Upon forming the Department of Homeland Security, we got moved there. Neither of those departments make that decision, and that's to maintain a bipartisan and impartial decision in that process. One of the few candidates that ever did get protection by presidential directive was because he got it early, and that was Barack Obama. He was definitely an anomaly in not that he's different, but his situation was different. He was the first black president that really had a chance. I know Jesse Jackson ran before. I know Al Sharpton ran before, but whether it's the country not being ready for a black president or their campaign not being strong enough to be a worthy candidate, they never got it as early as Barack Obama did. And that was in part because his biggest contender at the time was Hillary Clinton, who already had it. She did not have protection because she was running for president, or as many people think, because she was a New York U.S. Senator for New York. She got it because she was a former first lady.
Right,
And what was
right.
happening was he was going to events and she was going to events. And again, I know because I was there. And she would say, "Fellas, we're running a little late. Could we turn the lights on?" And we said, "Sure." So we would turn the red and blue lights on and get her there more quickly. Barack Obama didn't have that. And it
Right.
created for her an unfair advantage.
Yeah.
And then he started getting the threats, and his campaign went to the Secretary of Homeland Security and said, hey, or to the director of the Secret Service and said, hey, this needs to be evaluated. It was too early for the Obama detail, for the Obama detail to be brought up to what is called Candidate Nominee Operations Section, or CNOS. That is who protects the candidates, but only within the legal time frame prior to the first major federal election. So it was more than a year out, which is not when he gets protection for that. So the director of the Secret Service went to then President Bush and said, this guy's a possibility of succeeding you. You don't want to lose him on your watch. And George Bush couldn't sign that order fast enough. And so what he got then was the same thing that Hillary Clinton got as far as assets and manpower and so on. And then we see what happened, that even the playing field more, and his campaign had a better message than hers did.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, but yeah, you're right. You don't want to lose him on your watch. Ain't that the truth? I mean, that's heavy. Now, as far as the political aspect of it goes, the Secret Service is, while on the clock, they are absolutely positively neutral, right? I mean, you are. I'm sure you guys are not allowed to talk any sort of politics while you're on duty. Am I right or wrong about that? I mean, you wouldn't want
In
anybody to hear.
theory, yeah, in theory, but the reality is law enforcement in general is a very conservative environment and mentality. I've seen guys talk up, George W. Bush, Trump, and other guys give that person a high five. If you were to talk up the Obamas or the Clintons, you might get a talking to yourself.
Wow.
And unless you weren't, mother effing those same two people, you might, hey, we don't do that here. But if you're part of that conservative mindset where, you're talking, you're all pro rah, rah, rah for Trump or Bush, then it's a different story. And if you remember with regards to January 6th, there was some missing text messages that the Secret Service couldn't find.
Yeah, I remember that.
I think that's bullshit.
Yeah,
I don't. I see text messages from way back that come up on my phone. You telling me they're not found somewhere? And I think the biggest thing is if you're looking for text messages from me that perhaps I may have sent, we'll say to you, and I'm the target of the investigation, but I deleted the text messages. Fine. Don't get them from my phone. Get them from yours.
Yeah.
Get your phone and examine it. And those messages go out through the servers. They're somewhere. They're somewhere. And I think that's part of the conservative mindset.
I
I
actually
don't know
thought the
that.
Secret.
I have to say I don't know that. But the 21 plus years I've lived in the Secret Service, I would not be surprised.
Now you walked an unusual path in your Secret Service career. Are you comfortable talking about that?
Sure.
And
Go ahead. Yeah.
so so Ross, you served on the Secret Service, and I'm sure there's. I don't know if you can tell us if there were more, but you served as an openly gay agent. Did you
Not
serve
right away.
openly? Not right away. Okay,
Right
so
away.
it took you a
No.
little.
Because I knew again where I was and who I was with, etc. I was outed in my second post of duty in the San Francisco field office. I
Oh,
actually met, of all things, another gay agent, and we actually started dating. And in the process of hanging out together and with other coworkers, we shared that information with one of the, for lack of better terms, we'll just call her a secretary. And she felt that was information that, even though she told us she wouldn't share, that she should anyway. And she blabbed it to the whole office, and now the whole office knows. Many of the people that I worked with could have gave a shit. But unfortunately, again, there is that conservative, stereotypical mentality, and some people were, less than appreciative or attracted by that personal fact. And for that agent and me, things became difficult. He weathered it much better, and he handled it a lot better throughout his career, and I'm very happy for him. Um, he's now a supervisor in one of our largest offices. He's still on the job. He actually just turned 48 or 49 today, I think. But I didn't. I'm a bit more outspoken sometimes when perhaps I'd be better off not. I don't politic well. I tell you what I'm thinking, and sometimes tell you what you should probably be thinking.
Yeah.
When those people are bosses, that doesn't sit well with people that also have egos and pride. So I from that point on, it was much more of a challenge for me to accomplish various things throughout my career.
We have a comment here. I wanted to share this with you real quick. This is coming from Larry. He says, "You think the Secret Service would know better than anyone that the woke military is chomping at the bit to wipe out MAGA?" So yeah, so once in a while we do get a troll that floats through here. Yeah. Woke military. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's funny you say that, or bring that topic up. For my show, one of my biggest nemesis or enemies is formerly of the Secret Service, formerly of Fox News, Dan Bongino. I can't find a broadcaster that's a bigger piece of shit than he is. And I'm saying about that, a brother in blue, like I said, formerly also the Secret Service. I think Geraldo Rivera said it best about his career, that he was there for all of 10 minutes when, he did some cool things. But again, he's a guy that was better politically than I was. And then he goes and leaves. I don't know the story, but when he left, I understand there was kind of sort of a bit of a cloud, that he didn't exactly leave on the best terms. He wasn't forced out. He left on his own and eventually went to Fox News before, I think there were 2 failed campaigns for Congress, one for the Senate of all places. And, no rookie just runs for the Senate. And then one for Congress, and he got slaughtered in both, even in conservative markets. Now, as we know, Dan Bongino is a talking head of his own show, on whatever the conservative version of Twitter is. I mean, if there's something more conservative than Twitter, Rumbler or something like that, whatever. There.
Rumble, I think it's called.
Rumble, yeah. He's got a show there, and he's feeding his family. I'm happy for him. But yeah, he just got all pissed off about, he showed a Russian recruiting video that has these, I'm gay, so I'll say it, fairly good looking Eastern European boys, in boxer shorts doing push-ups in a dark dorm room and whatever. And then there's this new military commercial that of course nobody has seen, that is very progressive. It's a cartoon. It talks about this particular recruit's 2 mothers, lesbian mothers, and how the Army welcomed her to continue to serve her country. And as it turns out, it is based on a real Army recruit. And of course, he's all pissed off, and he's got this really fake anger look as he's looking at the camera. And I just went on his social media and trolled it like this guy just did here, and said, dude, you're fake. We laughed at you in the Secret Service, which we did. We laughed at you even harder at Fox News. And for those of us that know that you're still in the media, we still laugh at you.
Right.
And
Right. You
yeah,
can't take any of them seriously. You really can't. I mean, you
he
just hear it's
there's a bunch of media agencies out there that do fact checking, and then they put together a chart where they can show you where this person ranks right and left as far as, are they, as my show suggests, up the middle, or are they skewed to the conservative or liberal side? And then also up and down, where it's, if you're up higher on the scale, you're more reliable information. If you're lower, you're less reliable or even propaganda. Dan Bongino is bottom right of that whole, he's far right. So he's skewed way conservative beyond reality.
I
And
didn't call them conservatives. I just to me to this at this point, I think conservatives. I think it left prior to 2000. I think the term conservatives, we know it. I think it left this country, during the 2000s. Let's call it for what it is. It's not the conservatives
um,
anymore.
I think there's good conservatives out there. They're no longer with us. Lynn Cheney's now gone. Or I'm sorry, Liz Cheney's now gone. Um, Mitt Romney is retiring. And I think, that for what differences I've had with each of those, they stood their ground and showed some guts with their vote against Trump, for, vote to convict him, for what he did, what anybody with half a brain, knows actually happened.
Yeah,
And now Romney's talking, saying that there were colleagues of his who wanted to vote to convict Trump, but didn't, for the pure, simple fact that they were afraid for their family. I'm like, what would our founding fathers think about that?
yeah.
Who did lose their fortune and did lose, in some cases, their lives. You know,
Yeah, you're right. I mean, because Trump had a lot of he had definitely had the Russians on his side, and I think he was in their pocket more than they were in his. That's obvious. Um,
if any of your viewers and listeners are interested in that topic, an excellent podcast to also listen to is called "The Whistleblowers" by Miles Taylor. If you remember, there was a anonymous op-ed in like 2017, 2018, and that's only like a year, almost less than 2 years into the Trump administration. And already an anonymous op-ed in the New York Times appeared from a senior Trump staffer. Miles Taylor was that anonymous staffer.
wow.
And he now has a podcast called The Whistleblowers, where every episode tells a story of people like me, people like him, uh, that tells the story of people who were hunted by the Trump administration for speaking out. And he tells about how when they tried to brief him and Hillary back in 2016, what was happening and what was being found by the entire intelligence community. Hillary was very interested and very concerned. They couldn't figure out why Donald Trump wanted to hear nothing about it. Now
Well,
we know, because
yeah,
he already knew.
yeah. For one thing, I mean, I've heard about like he's so. I mean, the fascists they're always talking about Joe Biden's mental health, and maybe they're right in doing so. But it's not like Trump is any. He's been doddering from day one. He has no idea what a security briefing is. I mean, there are reports of him sitting there reading a newspaper where they're trying to give him an intelligence briefing. He couldn't be bothered. He couldn't understand what they're trying to tell him, which is
Yeah.
one of the reasons why the COVID crisis got where it got to, because he wasn't just paying attention. He couldn't be bothered with it. They were telling him what we should do, and he never listened. He didn't care, and then it went and spread out of control. He was a fool. He still is a fool. I mean, the guy. I mean, you talk about. I mean, the scariest person ever to be in the office is him by
Oh,
far.
yeah.
I mean, maybe Bush and Cheney did a lot of damage. I mean, they did a lot of damage too. I mean, good Lord. I mean, they cracked this country.
But you know what? Bush and Cheney had respect for the office and for the country, and respect for the at least a certain level of the proper procedure. After the Clinton administration, I like the guy. I know Bill Clinton, but he was also very casual. He would allow staffers to come in, especially on weekends, in blue jeans and t-shirts.
Mm.
W, if he had to get up in the middle of the night and go to the Situation Room for a briefing, he put a suit on. And at 3:30 in the morning, he was in a suit and tie getting whatever briefing that needed to be received. And not that Clinton's procedures were wrong, but for as much as we may all disagree, or many of us disagree with the second Bush administration, or even the first, they all, at least, and Clinton also, always showed a level of respect for the office that was desperately lost during the Trump administration.
Yeah. He absolutely had no respect for the office. He still doesn't.
I say that, by the way, as a political scientist and historian by education. That's not coming from my time in the Secret Service.
No. I'm just it's appalling. It's appalling that now he gets Secret Service now till when he dies, right? He's entitled. Is he
Correct.
entitled? Is he entitled to it? But what happens if he gets since he's underneath federal indictment, does he still get Secret Service protection or not?
He does now. Yes, he's been indicted and he still has it now. If he were to be convicted and go to become a client of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, that's uncharted territory. One of the things we're already dealing with in, not me, but in our country. Excuse me, I'm gonna burp. Sorry, the cocktail's doing it to it. Is the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment was put in right after the American Civil War, and one of the clauses in the amendment prohibits anybody who has ever taken part in an insurrection or rebellion of any kind to be prohibited from further holding office
Yeah,
in the United States government.
I don't understand why that's not being enacted.
It is, actually.
Okay,
And
good.
the 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 difficulties are, one, it doesn't say that he has to be found guilty. That's not anywhere. And two, there's no due process. There's no, not only does he not have to be found guilty, okay, so now he doesn't have to go to court, but there's no stipulation as to what does have to happen to have him declared unsuitable. So now we're trying to figure that out. Back when
Yeah,
it was put in, it was obvious.
who would ever thought we have to go this
You were the
route?
president of the Confederacy, you ain't coming. End of story. For many of us, what Donald Trump did on January 6th and before and after, and things like the phone call that's recorded with the Secretary of State for the state of Georgia, just find me 11,000 votes.
Yeah,
What do you think he's talking about there? Votes are in, they're counted.
yeah.
And all the statistics that he gave, I listened to that entire phone call. I have sent people to jail on much less evidence than that.
Wow, that's a mind blower. That's a mind
And
blower.
one of if you go to yergz.com and click on up the middle, you can see another tab or another button that's called Yergz Radio. My internet radio station is all about helping, and I actually need to talk to you about this because I'd like to bring this on, is all about helping podcasters get better and additional exposure beyond just the podcast directory. This is internet radio, and we replay podcasts on Yergz Radio. One of the shows there is done by a guy named David Beckmeyer, who has a show called Outrage Overload. His whole series, his whole podcast is essentially a study of what happens with rage, like Dan Bongino, how
Selective
he
rate.
gets all his listeners pissed off.
Yeah. It's
And
an old
not
trick.
only
Alex
that,
Jones did that shit. Rush Limbaugh did that shit. We got right wingers over here doing that shit on the radio. They
left
specialize
too,
in that.
and far left guys too. There's a guy I got up. It's right here. Give me 1 second on this other monitor here. Tony Michaels is the Dan Bongino of the liberal side. He's actually by that Advantes Media company considered to be less reliable than Dan Bongino, if that's a possibility. And he's way far left. He's just as far left as
Rabble
Bongino.
rousers.
Right. So Tony Michaels, another one. And yeah, I am not against conservatives. I'm not
I
against
wouldn't
liberals.
be either, but show me a conservative today. Show me a conservative today.
I think
you can't.
I think
I
a
don't think
good
you can.
and
I
you're not going to agree with everything he says, but I think a good I think he's much more reliable. He's got an opinion, but that's his right, and that's the show that he portrays, and that's a guy by the name of Ben Shapiro. He is kind of a goofball, I think, but he's a very well educated and very articulate goofball. And he does know, he's very informed. He does know, and he presents a good argument.
I know who he is.
Doesn't
But
mean you agree with him.
he does the same thing. He does the same thing though. He gets out there and rabble rouses. He goes down there.
Oh, without question. He also is for the rage and for the anger management. And that's what I try to eliminate. Kind of makes me a little bit more boring, maybe, but that doesn't mean I can get rid of the anger, turn down the anger, and turn up the passion. And that's what I try to do. I also believe
great job. Up the middle. Up the middle is really good. I've dropped it both times. If you guys could go over there and visit Up the Middle, I'm going to drop that link again.
Nice.
I would really, really appreciate it. If you have any questions for Ross, he's more than happy to talk to you about it. Absolutely. And as you can see, he knows quite a bit. So here's this channel here's this YouTube channel right here. I highly recommend that you go ahead and listen to and go over there and give it a sub, and also give it a listen to. He's got new episodes coming out every Wednesday. He's in the second season of Up the Middle. Highly recommend it. He's got a playlist for the first season. And yeah, tell us a little bit more about the radio.
Actually, we got rid of the only on Wednesday thing. We're looking to actually probably put out 3 more episodes just this week. We usually get about 2 a week, and that's why there's like 28 episodes from season 1, which we ended the last week of August. Took about a week or so off, and then came back in on Labor Day for Paul Harvey's birthday. We did I did a introduction to season 2 episode, and then episode 2 for season 2 was Paul Harvey's birthday. And I just he would have been 105 on September 4th. And
I just Paul Harvey when I was a kid.
Yeah, me too. Yep. So we're anywhere from usually about 2 episodes a week. Okay. This week we're going to talk about. I did my daily radio show. I talked about a guy that is doing this same thing. He's lying. Bottom line is he's lying, and people believe this shit, and they say, "Well, I heard it on the internet." I got it here, and automatically it's stamped as good, and that's not the case.
No.
And so what I do with Up the Middle is I teach people how to do their homework. Don't believe me. Don't believe me.
Researcher.
I don't want you to believe me.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, here's what I've got. In fact, Yergz.com on the Up the Middle tab has a spot for show notes. You can download the PDF show notes that I use for the show. Now, that feature is actually only literally a week old, so we're still getting it up to date. But eventually, that Yergz.com is going to be a sweet, robust site. It is already. You can get every episode there. It has the proper links to YouTube if that's how you like to watch it. There's a podcast tab where you can go to Spotify, iHeart, Apple, all of them, or you can just listen right there. Yergz Radio is also right there. And what we try to do is be, as the show suggests, up the middle, meaning that there's things I'm very personally pro Second Amendment. I have more guns than most Second Amendment people will ever have because I've used them in my career, and or they're a part of history that I appreciate, or they're family heirlooms that I want to maintain, or it's just my fucking right. End of
You know,
discussion.
yeah, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with the Second Amendment. When it was written back in the 1776, 1775. But those our nation's leaders, they did not mean for the Constitution to remain static. It was a living document, so to speak, and it had room to breathe and to change with the times.
That I
And
agree with.
huh? I mean,
That I agree with.
and the thing is, though, they don't. People who are the on the right with their their fanaticism, they don't understand that. They can't comprehend that it was never just a static a document. Things, there's amendments to it. There's amendments that were they were taken out. I mean, prohibition. I mean, the Constitution was always intended to be a breathing document to move with the change. Believe me, there's not a single founding father that, if they were to lie today, would look at the Second Amendment as we know it now and sit there and say, "That's what I intended," because damn well they didn't. They had no idea. If they knew what we know now, oh my God, could you imagine?
I don't agree with that, and I'll tell you
Well,
why. Because I know you're saying with things like muskets and so
sure.
on versus rifles, AR-15s today. Muskets were all the military had then. Now,
Well,
did your everyday farmer have a cannon? No, that was for the military. And because there is, I'll say it this way because you're here, so it'll hit home. Because you, Patrick, may not be a gun guy. Why does that give you the right to tell me, somebody who is a gun guy, that I don't need that gun?
okay, here's what I think.
You're
Okay.
probably right. You're
Here's my opinion
probably right.
about this. If you want to have a handgun in your house, you want to have a Glock in your house, and you want to have like 5 magazines in your house to protect you in your house, was that the castle doctrine, protect the house and protect the home? I'm
Yep.
about that. I'm about that, right? But to tell me that you need 5 AR-15s or an M4, you're absolutely, anybody's dead wrong. You don't need that kind of firepower.
It's
You just don't.
but you're missing a point. Need has nothing to do with it.
Nor should have the right to carry military equipment. There's
In
no
a free
reason.
society, in a free society,
We're
there's
not
got to
free.
be a certain level of want.
We're not
For
free.
example, let me ask you something. Do you collect anything?
Yeah.
Give me an example. What's something that's personal that you collect that you don't mind sharing?
I collect films.
You don't need that. You got your podcast.
Do you know what? Guess what? There are more films that are restricted for me to not own than there are guns for you.
Correct.
How about
Correct.
that? How
And
about
that's
that?
wrong.
Yeah,
And that's wrong.
yeah,
And there's Howard Stern said it best when the FCC was trying to get him out of the industry. He said, "If you don't like me, don't pitch to the government. Turn me off,
yeah.
and
Well,
I'll go away."
it's at the same time. At the same time, I mean, I also think too, like turning off also means could be sticking your head in the sand. If I don't see it, it isn't happening. Well, guess what? It is. If I don't want to, I'm not going to pay any attention to, they're burning books in Iowa, they're burning books in Kansas, they're stopping,
Right here in Florida.
they're arresting people trying to have abortions flying from one state to another because we took down Roe versus Wade. But if you just because you close your eyes to it and you don't want to see it, doesn't mean it's not happening and that you shouldn't be aware of it.
So
It's
I'm watching the chat too, and Debbie Morissette brings up two good points. Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd like to address. She says evolution does not just apply to biology, 100%, and that's the point that you were making, Patrick. Is that, and as a historian myself with a degree in constitutional law, I agree. The Constitution is a living document. It didn't make it to ratification without the first 10 amendments. So it wasn't even an official document, and it was already amended 10 times.
yeah.
That's the Bill of Rights. But so she's 100% right there. Uh, and then her next comment, I wanted to, but isn't that like saying I should be able to drink while I drive because I enjoy it and want it? Excellent question. No, I mean, yes, no, it is like saying that, and that's not correct. That's wrong. You shouldn't be able to drink and drive. I should not be able to take my AR-15 and shoot people because they're Jewish or because they're black or because they're gay.
Or
That's wrong
walk inside of a Starbucks with it just because because it's
because you can't.
you say
No,
it's a free
and
country. It's not a free country.
Florida, Florida, there's as my parents taught me for the past 52 years, there's a time and place for everything.
Hmm.
Me shouldering an AR-15 and going grocery shopping, probably a little bit of overkill. But putting that AR-15 in a case, going to a proper outdoor rifle range,
Hmm.
and showing my son how to, engage in target practice, absolutely zero things wrong with that. It's a
No,
skill, it's a hobby. And while Debbie may not like it or you may not like it, that doesn't matter.
I don't
Don't
mind that.
go on.
You want to take your kid out there to a range and you want to have him crack off a 22 or a 30-06 or a hunting rifle like the NRA used to be all about. They used to be all about hunting and conservation of resources. I have no problem with that. You want to go out there and squeeze off some Glock rounds, 17 rounds? I have no problem with that. But there's no way in God's green planet that anybody should need an AR-15 with a drum magazine or an M4 or anyone or an Uzi or Tech 9 and be able to go out there and shoot off. You're not protecting anybody or any house with that kind of firepower.
Actually, here's what's happening in Philadelphia. Just saw this on the news yesterday. One of the famous, as you may know, Philadelphia is known for the sandwich called the cheesesteak. It's chopped up steak with melted cheese in it, and it's like a hoagie. One of the famous cheesesteak places was shut down for security reasons because of a drive-by shooting in a black neighborhood in Western Philadelphia, a rough section of Philadelphia. They've recently reopened and have since employed armed security guards walking up and down the street. Guess what they're carrying? AR-15s.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
willing. They're wearing ceramic plate vest. Now, for those of you that don't know what a ceramic plate vest is, it's a ballistic vest, but in addition to the soft Kevlar, on the top of it is this stone, essentially, that's called ceramic. It's a man-made composite that is better for repelling rifle rounds. And they're wearing these tactical vests carrying AR-15s. And I've seen them. And the head of the guy of the detail was interviewed on TV. He looks like he's a former Secret Service agent. In fact, everybody on that team is prior or current law enforcement. So it's not like there's like gang members, protecting it. It gave very much of a professional feel. But that's what's happening in Philadelphia. There's a gas station in North Philadelphia that has the same type of security because people are being robbed at the pumps, and not just by the oil companies.
Yeah,
Um,
you're getting
look
it both ways there.
Remind me, Patrick, are you in LA or San Francisco, or you're somewhere on
No,
the
I
West Coast?
initially lived in California until I was 36, and I moved out to southeastern Michigan. I'm about 30 miles away from
Okay.
Detroit.
Okay. San Francisco recently had a case of a very prominent tech company executive that was murdered by a homeless person just for good measure. And what's happening is there is violence that, like, now there's something, I missed it, I didn't see the whole thing, but San Francisco is saying that to go grocery shopping, you go retail theft. That's how you go get your groceries. And there's nothing anybody's going to do about it.
No,
It's not
no,
going to fly here in rural
no.
Florida.
Well, you know what though? It's not going to fly there either. And companies are
Yeah.
closing up shop and leaving. So, I agree. I mean, I agree with that. I don't think that, that should happen. And, it shouldn't happen, but it does. And, and there's a lot I think that's slightly off topic, but let me catch up with the chat because all of a sudden now you and I now we're popping.
Yeah.
Yeah, now
Debbie's
we're
back at
popping.
it. Who else? Andre's got a
So,
yes,
okay.
Andre's absolutely right about the firepower. That's absolutely an issue.
Uh, yeah, that's interesting
I'll let
too.
you take over.
Okay, so here's our friend Betty J. Gather says that is only if you was white. And remember, I'm not a whole human being in the Constitution, and the Indians were not at all. That's right. The Indians were not
Originally,
part.
yes.
Yeah. So
Originally and sadly, yes.
so so let me come back and read that. It says, "Are we fully protected under the Constitution?" I don't think that really happened until what 1964.
Well, I was going to say, who's we?
I mean, African
I don't,
Americans.
I don't see that quote, so I don't know if that's coming in from Facebook.
No, that's what she says is are we fully protected under the Constitution? I don't think African Americans really were or Indians were until 1964 when they got the civil rights. And
Uh,
and remember too, back in San Francisco back in the 60s, gun control never was a problem until Elridge Cleaver and the Black Panthers suddenly decided, oh, okay, well, if it's all right for them to carry guns around, we're going to do that too. And they started doing that. And next thing you know, all of a sudden, California suddenly popped up with a lot of gun legislation. Now,
yeah,
why is that? Now, how'd that happen? Let's see, lazy
because
cheetah. Okay.
I think things like critical race theory and some of the systemic, not just targeting here but targeting everywhere type of attitude. I think that's a legitimate concern.
Mhm.
Um, Everybody says "Make America Great Again." Well, I don't mean everybody, but you know
Yeah,
what I'm saying. Make
right.
America great again. Okay, well, if America isn't great now, when was it great? Oh, back in the 1800s. You mean when we had slavery?
Yeah, yeah.
Or, well, back in the 50s and 60s. Well, was it great for a black person who had to go to a separate bathroom and couldn't drink from some certain water fountains?
They put their lives on the line during World War II and then get
Yeah.
told to go in the color line when they got home.
Yeah, exactly. So when exactly was America great?
Yeah, no maggot can answer that question. If you ask that from
Oh
any
yeah,
right-wing
that's
maggot, ask them that one. When was America great? What does that mean? What time period are you talking about?
Right.
when you know
And that's what this guy's asking when he talks to these people is, tell us when it was great if it's not great right now, and they can't do it.
no. Uh, See, I'm gonna bring this attention here because we got our friend Andre. He's from New Zealand, and I also want to talk about Australia. So these are two countries.
Mhm.
In Australia, there was a mass shooting by a young named Martin. They actually made a movie about it. He got himself some guns, and he went around some semi-automatic weapons, and he went around and he killed 32 people in a mass shooting, the worst mass shooting in Australian history. Within a week, their government outlawed guns. Now farmers are allowed to have them, but they have to go through hoops for them. The gun
Yeah.
violence in Australia is next to nil. It's next to nil. You just don't. And New Zealand had a right wing fascist who went out there and shot up a Muslim a mosque. I saw that video too, by the way. It's absolutely horrific. Absolutely.
Wow.
And that would be a case for if you say if you have a right to have an AR-15, you watch that video and you come back and tell me the same thing. You saw
Right.
what happened to Las Vegas. You saw what happened to Las Vegas. Do you
Right.
really, so they got rid of their weapons right after that incident. Here, it seems like after Vegas or Sandy Hook. Sandy Hook, of course, the fascists decided that was a false flag operation, and Alex Jones and all his cronies that said that never happened. Can you
Is that
believe
the guy
that?
that was just sued for over $1 billion and
Yeah,
found liable
yeah,
for it? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you got those guys saying that. Yeah, can you imagine that? Can you imagine that?
$1 billion, one person. So let
Uh,
me jump in about some of those things. One, the United States is way different from Australia and New Zealand. It just is. I'm not saying that it's wrong for New Zealand or Australia to make those changes. Here's something else that Australia is also going through. Australia is still in a lockdown from COVID. Did you know that?
uh, no.
Leave Australia, leave Australia and try to get back in. You can if you're a citizen, if you go through certain steps and what have you. If you're not, if you're there on some sort of visa, forget about it. It's not happening. As a result, through the whole COVID, since COVID's become a thing in late 2019 till now, the entire continent of Australia has had fewer deaths than just the city of Tampa. So, yeah, it worked.
Yeah.
But do you want to go through those steps to get back into Australia? And how well do you think some regulations like that would happen in a very diverse United States? It would
I just think
probably cause
Australia.
another civil war.
I know New Zealand. I think they had the lowest rate of any industrialized country with COVID. I think the matter of deaths or in the cases were the lowest of any industrialized nation. I think they were. Andre could tell us that maybe. Um, but But look at the action that they did, though.
Yeah,
They
I
went
mean,
ahead and
that's
no,
fascinating.
people didn't like it. People didn't like it. But when you tell them, listen, like people talk about wearing masks. One guy he felt really bad. He's a really nice guy, and I'm really looking forward to talking to him. And I felt really bad for him. He was talking about he lives in New Jersey, and he's talking about how they might have the mask mandate up again, and he's sitting there. He was sort of raging against the machine about it. He says, I don't want to be seen as I don't want to be seen as a coward. I don't want to be seen as a coward, if I'm being forced to wear a mask. And I'm like, I don't see you as a coward at all. I sort
No,
of see you, I sort of see you sort of like a hero because you're willing to do that. It's not about, like you're wearing a mask because it has no reflection about you. What it
right.
tells me is that when you put on a mask, it's not about you. You're telling me that you care about everybody around you. And that
Correct.
to me, that makes you a human being. You
Right.
know, that's what that tells me.
100%.
It doesn't tell me that, yeah, I'm being forced to wear a mask because the government stepped on my neck. No, it's telling me that I don't, because no one wants to wear that. Like, no one wants to wear a mask, right? Okay, we get that. But you did it. And it helped and it saved our country. After what after Trump, put 1 million Americans in the dirt with his inactivity. 1 million people have such short memories in this country, Ross. They have such short memories. It blows my mind. It blows my mind. 1 million people died with the pandemic, and people just, you know, they're talking about 9/11, and everybody's sitting there, never forget, never forget. And it just makes me laugh when people say, never forget 9/11, never forget. It makes me laugh because you're saying that now, but you've already fucking forgot what World War II. You've already fucking forgot about that. You forgot about the Burke boonies. You forgot about the Red Scare. You've forgotten about the 60s. You've forgotten already. This country has such a short-term memory problem. They That's why our history is repeating itself.
I was just going to say that. It's
Yeah,
just right now, just going to say that. Yep, exactly. Because
it
nobody listens
frustrates
the
the
first
shit
time.
out of me. If
Yep.
let me catch up here because I see
We got
Cheetah
some
has
great
commented.
comments waiting for us there.
Yes,
Lazy Cheetah, Debbie, Andre.
I know I'm catching up here. Let's see.
Betty,
Uh,
Betty Gathers has something I'd love to talk about too.
let's see. Uh, Cheetah says
No,
he's too punk rock and anti-established to care if someone doesn't want me to have something. I don't bootleg or bow down to anybody. What does that even mean, Cheetah? What
I,
does that? I don't understand.
don't care.
No,
I like it anyway.
I don't understand who are you bootlicking or bowing down to? I don't understand who that is. I mean, if you're talking about the COVID crisis, the people that with 1 million people dead, and someone walked up there and wore a mask, I tell you one. I tell you one thing, my friend, and I know you well enough to know this. If you came to if you came around a few years ago when my wife was sick, and I told you that she was susceptible to catching a disease really quick, and would you mind wearing a mask while you're inside my house? I know you would put it on. I know
Yeah.
you would do that. You would sit there and say, not a problem. I will be happy to do that for you because you're my friend and your wife is sick. I'm going to put this mask on. You're not bootlicking. You're not bending down for anybody. You're being a human being. And when people see, that's what people just they forgot about that. No, the government are people too. The government wants to say who. The government wants to say. Let's see. Who don't? Let's see. Okay? I can't see because I have to wait till that comment gets scrolled up a little bit. That's all. That's what I'm saying, Cheetah. It's
Let's
like,
go up. Let's go up and address one of the things that I hope Debbie's still with us. Debbie Morissette. When she said, "Isn't that like saying that you should be able to drink and drive because I enjoy it and I want it?"
sure,
Back to that one. Yes, it is like saying that. No, you shouldn't be able to do it. My thing about having a gun is that, like we said, and I think you acknowledged that or somebody else did, there is a time and place for everything. And if you've seen I forget which, I think it was Toby Maguire's version of it, Spider-Man. We were talking about movies earlier. Uncle Ben said that with great power comes great responsibility. I've carried a gun for 30 years, more than 30 years. And I know I don't use that for show and tell. I
sure.
don't take it out at the bar and show my buddies. There's only two reasons why I touch that gun: to put it away or to use it. And that's a really big decision to make.
You're you're
If
you're
I
proper,
have
you're properly trained. You're properly vetted.
if I
Uh,
have one of these, I don't have one of the others.
yeah.
So same thing with drinking and driving. I lost 3 friends to DUI accidents and they're not coming back.
Yeah.
So the causes of those, unfortunately, 2 of the 3 friends were the causes of the accidents,
Mm.
and that's never going to change. And so there needs to be just as much legislation and procedure. If I see you, Debbie, if we're out drinking and you can't handle, but not that you can't, if you're not, fit to drive, I help find you a way home, a safe way home. If there's some situation where I don't need to be or should not be carrying a firearm, then you should remind me that, hey, do you really need an AR-15 to go to Walmart? Maybe we can, bring it down a notch. Back shout out again to David Beckmeyer's show, where we cool off the temperature, as he says, and, kind of control anger management. Um, Call me V, says wants and needs are different, and I agree.
Mm-hmm. Larry. I think Larry is a centrist, which is good. We like that. He says here, the Republicans stole voter information and tied it with your social media preferences. Cambridge Analytics deep roots. Yes, that's right.
Well, I
That's
think
right. They basically
Republicans are
stole
going
the
after the
election.
other side too. I
They
think
stole.
Republicans are going after the other side too, because I got some various social media accounts. Like, one is for my jet ski, and I have another YouTube channel called PWC TV. PWC is essentially the technical term of a jet ski. It stands for personal watercraft. I'm gay, I'm single, and I'm not into women. And I get all kinds of hits on my PWC jet ski channel for big tittied bikini babes that want to meet me and meet my wife and so on. And I'm not interested in helping with either. That is coming from somewhere else. It's not coming from me.
It is that part.
I did not.
That's a whole different show, but that is weird. That
Yeah,
is weird.
exactly.
It says, Larry, can you only regurgitate right-wing media narratives? We're not right. You're not paying attention, because we're not right wing here. But they're the ones that are spitting it up. They're the ones. That's their narratives. They're the ones that keep chucking it up. So
Personally, I am against extremists on right or left. I think there's some far left stuff that's absolute nonsense as well. Can you look up I am Betty J. Gathers? She has a couple good comments.
yeah, Betty's very smart. Let's see. Cheetah says, take a break, have a drink. I was gonna say take a break and paint, because he's a great painter.
I'm actually, if we go too much longer, I'm going to need another drink, because this one's almost down to the bottom.
All right, let me go up there. Yes, Betty
Around
says. Betty says, oh, where are we at here? Let me make sure I don't lose this. Okay, we got 10 minutes. I'm 67 years old. I'm a 67-year-old African American woman, and nothing has changed. The KKK went from the hood to the bow tie, and that is all I have to say. Yeah. So please do not answer it. You know how we feel, and it's absolutely true. I mean, it's true. I mean, the KKK.
Comment there is,
the KKK.
You will never know how we feel, and she's right about that. I'm one of the talking heads on another show called Negro World News. I'm the white guy, obviously, in case you haven't noticed yet. I'm the white guy on the show, and it's a delicate balance, trying to show empathy without showing sympathy for something you know nothing about. And I think I get more kudos from my black co-hosts, or not co-hosts, but counterparts, co-panelists, who see that there is support. And I said this to various members from the Black Lives Matter committee when that first came about. I said, you're not going to do this alone. I'm just telling you, you're not going to do this alone. And some of them said, no, we don't need you. I said, okay, have fun. Because think about when my demographic in recent years, and within the last 10 years, finally got the right to marry. Who did that? It wasn't a gay president. It was a straight black president.
Yeah.
And his crazy vice president who started it, crazy Uncle Joe, who started it, and soon that case made it to the Supreme Court, and it was decided in our favor. But
Well,
we didn't do that alone.
you better look over your shoulder. You better look over your shoulder about that because Iowa just introduced legislation to repeal gay marriage.
Oh, there's more than 700 anti-gay bills that
Hmm.
have been introduced already
And
during the Trump
look
administration.
at look at all those straight white males, nothing but sex traffickers, nothing but rapists, nothing but child molesters. And look at the right wing Christian church. I mean, you got more freaks there, more sexual
None of
deviants
them are
there.
drag queens.
Yeah.
None of them are drag queens.
Let's see. Threatening gun
I,
legislature sells more guns, and really look who really does it. Look the right the left. Look, nobody says no one's ever said that can't have guns. Nobody has ever said. All we're
but
saying is
some of the left is proposing that. In fact, the Biden
no, there's
administration
just no
is
way.
talking
There's no way
it's
impossible.
not going to
There's
happen.
more guns than there are people in this country. So
Right.
anybody that says that, is it's it's you're right. They have there's no basis for reality for that. Pandora's box is open for us. Whereas Australia and New Zealand, they were still small enough and had a limited amount of weapons in because they already had tight rules already in place. So when that did happen, when that kid did go on those rampages in New Zealand and Australia, it did make it easier for the country to go in there and say, "We'll buy your guns. We're going to take your guns. We're going to buy them from you. This is what we're going to do." You're still going to be able to get them because they know that the people who run sheep ranches or what have you out in the rural area, you got to have guns. I was shocked to figure, when I found out that a lot of the farmers they're allowed to have shotguns. Because I'm saying like, well, what happens if you run across a salty? Do you put a rifle bullet in his head and go like rifle? We don't get rifles. We get shotguns. It's
Yeah.
very rare that a farmer will get like a 30-06 or a 338 Savage. Very rare that ever happens.
Well,
Uh,
the rifles have better distance than the shotgun does, way better. The
exactly.
shotgun
I don't want to.
might be almost accurate at 100 yards. A rifle kind of starts at 100 yards and moves out from there.
Yeah, if I'm seeing a great salty crocodile coming my way, I'm not a shotgun. It's going to be spitting
Yeah,
at it. I
yeah.
want something to put it down. Um, let's see. This has been great. Thank you guys offering for the engagement too. I hope you guys are. This is fun. I told you this is gonna be different tonight.
One of
Um,
call me V. Constitutional issue or lack of common sense issue, kind of a little of both. But with regards to a license, Florida, where I live right now, just instituted open carry, which means all I have to do is have a Florida driver's license and I can carry any gun wherever, whatever. That is ridiculous. As a pro Second Amendment guy, I'm saying that's fucking stupid. And you're absolutely right. It should not be just a signature. There should be a performance test. There should be a skills test and a knowledge test. Do
yeah.
you know the law? If
Hmm.
I kill you, V, and I was wrong, or V, and I was wrong, you're not coming back to life.
Exactly.
And so while the Second Amendment protects my right to carry, the other 26, or 25, I think there's total 26, protect your right to live. And
Uh,
so, yeah, there needs to be more than just the Second Amendment.
Cheetah, I agree with you. I mean, yeah, not everyone, but see what you said here. Look, he says that's why everybody needs a handgun. I have no problem with handguns. You want to have a handgun? Because to me, it's like, man, you got 17 rounds in a Glock. If you need more than 17 rounds to defend your house, yeah, you probably not haven't done very. You haven't probably you should have probably went out to the range a little bit more. Um, but I have no problem with that. I have no problem with carrying a gun. Even though a handgun or guns in the house, you're likely to get killed 14 times more by your own family member than by an intruder. So your own family member is probably likely to kill you than a stranger invading your house. 14 times more likely. It used to
Yeah.
be 12. It used to be 12. Now it's up to 14 because it's been happening so much. But go ahead and strap on those weapons. Go ahead and have those armories in your house. See what happens. That's why we got Sandy Hook. You want to, look where those guns came from. Look what happened to Rochester. Look what happened to North
So,
Carolina or South
yeah, let,
Carolina.
let me talk about Sandy Hook for a minute, for a quick minute, because I know you're running out of time and I'm seeing some other really good comments coming up. That kid and his mom were hoarders. And this is where not just this is a spot where the Second Amendment, I think, is too strong, and society as a whole is being handcuffed. If if they were able to look into the hoarding, which may is their right to put all that shit in their house, but it's not normal,
No,
and it
mentally ill.
is
They're
in
mentally
fact
ill.
a social and mental disorder.
Hmm.
They would have found the guns, conducted some other investigation, and even if only temporary, would have removed the guns from the house. And
Yeah.
maybe in that case, at least the mom, who was murdered first, would still be alive today.
And she bought the guns for him.
Correct.
She bought the guns for him, and then, like I said, 14 times more likely, and that's exactly what happened to her. She got killed. Legally bought the guns, had every right to buy it. No, what's it? 75% of the people who commit murder have absolutely zero criminal record. 75% of the people that commit murder have had no like definitely no felony convictions. Probably have some parking tickets, maybe some speeding tickets or whatnot, but 75% have had no history of violent crime.
Yeah.
But you know what? So,
Yep.
but go ahead and let them buy that M4 from you. You
So,
know,
so there's something happening in your chat right now that I think we should both address. Debbie and Betty J. Betty, what Debbie's talking about with the switcheroo, and I can address that. If we scroll up to about 944, Debbie said, "Can you remind us how the political parties did a switcheroo in terms of values, et cetera, after Lincoln with the KKK and so on?" Yeah. So the party that officially started the Ku Klux Klan were the Democrats.
yeah,
That's correct. Now,
yeah,
let me tell you why that sounds really stupid. The conservative party of the day in the mid 1800s was the Whig Party, WHIG. The other party, that there was still a two party system, the other party was called the Democratic Republicans. Either of those two words sound familiar? It's
yep,
because they're the two parties we have today. What happened was the Democratic Republicans had a wide range of values and they split. The conservatives were the Dixie Democrats, the
Dixiecrats.
Southern gentlemen that were Democrats. Because remember, women were nowhere close to federal government at that time. So the conservatives that were mostly fighting the other conservative party, being the Whigs, were the Democrats. Abraham Lincoln was, and I do mean this literally, was a flaming liberal. Let me say that again. The people who are saying today that they're the party of Lincoln have no idea what they're talking about, because Abe Lincoln was a progressive. So back then, and that's the switcheroo that Debbie's talking about. Today, of course, we know the Republicans, the GOP, which stands for Grand Old Party. If that isn't enough of a clue as to what the Republicans stand for, I don't know what else to tell you. But today, and Betty, this is the switcheroo she's talking about. Who used to be the conservatives are now the liberals. That's the Democrats. And who
Yeah,
used
is
to be
there
the
something
liberals are
else?
now the conservatives. That's the Republicans.
Isn't it something like today? I mean, back in the when Reagan ran for over when Reagan was president, if he was today in today's world, he would be considered a liberal.
Right?
Yeah, he would.
Well, not by Democratic standards, no, but by MAGA standards, yes. In fact, it wasn't famous enough, sadly, but when he and George H.W. Bush were debating for what would eventually be Reagan's first term, uh, they asked a question about how best to secure the border. Do you know what both of them said? Open it. Two conservative Republican presidents said, open the border. Now look at the conservative Republicans today.
Oh, they do
That's
that
not what
shit
they're
all the
saying.
time. That they do that
What's
shit
that?
all the time. It's like if you wanted the closed border, if you wanted the closed border, and if the fascists had really truly wanted that, they always talking about that shit. If they really had wanted it, they could have did that without any opposition at all. At all. Nobody. In fact, they probably would ask for volunteers. Half of them would have been Democrats. If you really wanted and really believed in a closed border, you could have got it without any problem at all on September 12th, 2001.
So,
But of course,
first
we
of
didn't
all,
see that, did we?
what they're talking about when they say open the border, they're not saying take down walls or barriers along the Rio Grande River. They're saying allow for immigration and increase that process. That's really all they meant when George H.W. and Reagan both said open the border. Today, Trump flat out said keep Muslims out. That was policy during his administration. And again, going back to Miles Taylor and his podcast, they're like, we can't do that. That's illegal. And Trump pushed it anyway. But so Betty, hopefully that better describes. Yes, I 100% agree. The Klan sadly is alive and well. It's just much more underground. I can tell you firsthand that the law enforcement community is on top of it. That does not mean your life has become any better. I don't think it has. I live in rural Florida. Less than 1 mile from my house, I can show you two Confederate flags that are hanging and flying at this very moment.
And they have no
Once,
idea. They have no idea what they're flying. They have no
yeah.
idea, no concept of
Oh,
that.
yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Do you
It's
really think they
they don't,
understand what the
oh,
flag meant for?
100%, 100% they
That,
know,
that
and
would be
that's
that'd be
exactly what
wrong.
they're intending.
Well, I mean, no, I'm not. I'm talking about they know the history of the flag more than rabble rousing. There are some that walk down with it because they know they'll get a reaction from it. But if they walked up there
No,
and talked to
they're
them about it,
flying
they
it
wouldn't
because
know.
they're members of the Klan. They're flying it because they're members of the Klan. And I'll tell you, when that number goes from 1 mile to 2 miles from my house, it grows exponentially. And that I think is part of the sad commentary is that their kids aren't members of the Klan and want nothing to do with it. But
Larry,
there's
if
these,
you're more than welcome to. You're welcome to sit and say and talk. But if you're going to climb down there and start insulting people, your ass can hit the door. That's my First Amendment. That's my freedom of speech, freedom of expression. And that is to kick your ass out of here if you're being disrespectful. Just a heads up.
yeah, what's happening there?
I don't know if he wants to. That's right. People forget about that. People forget that we have the same rights that they claim that they get to have. Well, guess what? We get to have them too.
Well,
Yeah.
if Larry's last comment, thanks for watching television for political information, then voting. I that's a perfect opportunity for if you're going to be wrapping up soon.
I
Watch
mean,
up the middle. Watch up the middle
yeah, I don't
because
mind. I don't
I
mind.
tease
I
you.
don't mind. I don't mind discourse with. Well, okay, I can't have a political discourse with a maggot. I never will. And don't ask me to because that won't happen. But if you want to have a civil discourse on what we've been talking about, not a problem. I'll be happy to do it. But I'm never going to be. I'm never going to walk down and walk with somebody walking and being a maggot. Just not going to happen. Yes, Mr. Yergz, I would love to talk to you. Yes, I think you should. I think you
I'm
should.
happy to tell you can see it there. Yergz.com. Just fill out the contact info, and we can easily continue this. Um, my radio show, the live part, and it's live only. It doesn't get turned into a podcast, and that's by design. That is 5:30 p.m. every weeknight. Yergz.com. You can go to up the middle and click the radio tab, and that'll take you to the player. The podcast, like I said, now gets 2 to 3 episodes a week. That's also at Yergz.com. Yergz.com. Anything, Yergz.com. It's all there. And that's what I love about that website is that, I just got to give you that and it's everything. You can contact me. I can do public speaking, either virtually like this or in person. You name it. We can set it up.
All right, boys and girls, that's going to wrap it up for this fun edition of Eight Questions with. Obviously, it turned into one of the more entertaining. That's for damn Skippy, and I'm
Quite
glad
sure.
you guys all hung in here and watched it. Please give Ross a sub. He's got a YouTube channel there. I'll drop the channel again. Go ahead and sub. Uh, he's got great content, as you can see. He's very well educated. He is a patriot. He has served this country with honor and distinction.
Thank you.
And we appreciate it. And thank you for keeping our president safe, our leader safe, even if one was a maggot.
Yeah.
Thank you
I
anyway.
too.
uh,
Yep.
but yeah, tomorrow night looks like that we might not have a guest. Unfortunately, Spooky Kisses Haunts will not be here. They are traveling from one show to the other. Let's see. Scruffy Pill Popper is obviously a goner, so that must be Trump. Okay. Yeah, I'll be surprised. Obviously, I
I don't
honestly I
know
would
who
not
that
be
is.
surprised.
Who's Scruffy Pill Popper?
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I guess so. Uh, um, But yeah, but we'll be back here on Friday with none other than Debbie. Debbie will be here. Doc Dan will be here with us on Friday at 8 p.m. It'll be a night of fun and music and all sorts of fun talk. We invite you to come out here and uh,
And let
that's
us
all
know
right.
in the chat if you think.
I'll clean that up after. I'll clean that up afterwards. Not a
Let
problem.
us know in the chat if you think that Patrick's show needs to be the newest addition to Yergz Radio.
Uh,
My
that would
pleasure,
be
buddy.
So we'll be back here on Friday at 8 o'clock. We will have Ross will be back with us on October 17th, if he can. We're gonna go ahead and
Oh,
talk to Larry. I got the booking, so Ross will be back with us on October 17th when we talk to Larry D. Avazito from California. He is running for president of the United
oh
States,
yeah.
and we will be talking to him because I have never talked to a presidential candidate. Um, it'll be
I've had
interesting
some
to hear.
experience there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, I don't know. I don't, I know there's a lot of people that can run for president, but I've never talked to anybody who's actually done it. So that will be October 17th. Mark it on the calendar. I'll be putting the banner up before by the end of tomorrow. Come by, hit notify me, and then on the 17th, me and Ross will be back talking to Larry D. Alvazito. Um, all right. Thanks so much for coming by. Ross, stay right where you at to the
Will
chat.
do.
Thank you so much. And we will talk at you soon.
All right, everybody. Thanks for having me.